Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started now in a second. We're just waiting for everyone to come into the room. Still a few more joining, and we'll get started. Great. Okay, I think we'll get started. So hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Valerie Abbott, and I'm based here in the Loughlin Queen School of Business. So I suppose, the information session this evening is to discuss the business programs that we offer here in UCD. Before we get started, I suppose just if anyone's not familiar with who we are, we're the Loughlin Quinn School of Business. So if anyone is thinking about studying business in UCD, you would be coming to study with us here in the business school in UCD. I'm joined by a number of my colleagues and students this evening, who are going to talk through the school, the programs that we offer, and share their experience of the programs here in the school. We know that it's a busy time of year and lots of people are making decisions. So the intention this evening, I suppose, is just to give you a flavour of the 4 degrees that we have. So we have commerce, commerce international, economics, and finance. And I suppose while they're all business degrees, there's a lot of similarities, but there is a lot of differences between those degrees. So we really want to help you make an informed decision. We want you to hear from our students who are walking the walk at the moment and experiencing those degrees, and giving you their insights into what they are. And then what we'll do is we'll come back at the end then, and we will have some questions, and hopefully we can answer any questions that we haven't shared through the slides. So the plan is that first, I'm going to welcome Maeve Houlihan. Maeve is the Associate Dean here in the Quinn School of Business. Maeve is going to talk to us for about 15 minutes to give you a good overview of the school, the programs, and what we're really about here, and what we think we can offer you as a place to come and study. Then we are going to be joined by Charvi Goyal. Charvi is one of our final year economics and finance students. Reese is going to join us. Reese is studying Commerce International with French. So he's going to give you his overview of that program. And then we're going to hear from Adiola, who is in final year of commerce as well, and had a lot of experiences here in the school. So she is going to share her thoughts, and hopefully then you'll get a really good insight as to what it's like to study with us here. So I shall leave it there for now. Sorry, I should just say, if anybody has any questions, do put your questions in the Q&A box. I'll be here all evening and I'll answer the questions, and then we can put them to everybody at the end as well. So hopefully we'll get all the questions answered as we go through the evening. So Maeve, over to you.
Okay,
Sorry,
well, thank you
I'll
thank you
stop
very
sharing.
much, Valerie. I appreciate that greatly. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the call this evening. We're very mindful that many of you may indeed have had the opportunity to join us during an open day, an open evening, or a previous webinar, or you perhaps are coming to us for the first time. So we want to give you a blend of the general information about the school, a feeling for who we are and the particular programs, but especially knowing that for many of you, you're coming to a decision point with your CAO applications. We want to answer any specific questions you may have. So as we pass it by, just an image of our main theatre. Now, many of our experiences are in a theatre like that, but as you will see throughout our presentation, lots of other learning environments here as well. So now let's see. The four programs, of course, that we're speaking about are the BCom International, Business and Law, and Economics and Finance. But maybe even before we thought about that, right now, there's a big conversation about, do you need to go to college and why would you go to college? I think that's a really important one for you to consider. And I guess everybody has to reach their own answers for it. Obviously, that one of the big reasons people might go to college is to get a knowledge and a qualification that will enable them in a future career, and that's absolutely something that you will have great opportunity to do here at Quinn. However, I think we would really strongly say that there are a lot of other reasons to go to college as well. And one of the biggest, truest ones really is the chance to spend some time expanding as a person, broadening your horizons and stretching. And one of the most fundamental ways that that happens in college is really through the relationships and the friendships that you build. So you see an image there of our main atrium in Quinn, and really a lot of our work, a lot of our curriculum is navigated through groups, through dialogue, and through shared conversations. And ultimately, those are the bridges to the relationships that will bring you towards your future as well. So really want to think about that. Of course, careers are a big part of it, and we would find that 90% of our graduates are immediately moving into either direct employment or graduate level training. So we have no doubt about it that it is actually a very significant advantage to go to college. Why would you study business in particular? Well, of course, we often would have a chat about that in class. Sometimes think people think that it's all about business. For us, it's really more about what you can do. And we see the skills of business as operating in every sector, in profit, non-profit, public sector, as well as private sector and enterprises. And really the great ambition of what we do is to create and add value. But ultimately, of course, that means that you should consider where you're going to thrive and what's going to interest you in terms of what you might study and then ultimately what you might do with it. A big part of what we do in business and in the business school here is work on your skills and your professional formation. And we do that through how we teach, but particularly how we learn. And so the types of assessments, the types of challenges that you experience in class. And then, as you'll hear, a lot of opportunities such as internships and study abroad to really stretch and think. Of course, it's really helpful if you're interested in the affairs of the day and, following the business news. There is absolutely no doubt about it. We are in very interesting times, very challenging times, and business has a lot to bring to that conversation. In particular, our curriculum is filled with, I guess, material that can really help us navigate the issues of our time because it is about understanding people. It is about grappling with technology and indeed big global challenges like sustainability as we work to build better futures. So that is the big picture of why you might study here. If you're going more specific, business degrees generally involve these six domains. These are the six specialist areas that we study here: accounting, finance, management, human resources, management information systems or tech, and marketing. So those are the fields, the arenas in which you might play. We don't like to boast too much, but undoubtedly, we're proud to say that Quinn is amongst the finest business schools in the world. We're part of global networks that verify that through constant review. And we're also really proud that our students have made an impact across 100 and nearly 120 years now, made an impact in business right around the globe, as we'll talk about many of our alumni playing really significant roles in global affairs. We'll just actually pass a few of them there as we're speaking about it. Just this year, we're celebrating in particular Amy Connolly, who would be very well known to many consumers in the Irish markets and increasingly globally. Amy is just 10 years out of her degree in BCom International in the Quinn School, and she's achieved remarkable success. And this year, in fact, was awarded UCD Alum of the Year in Business. We're very proud of her. And you see many other fields that we're involved in, our graduates of ours are involved in, particularly here in the areas of food and lifestyle, which is really interesting to think about. Okay, and I just think while we're mentioning it, we might just mention some of our more recent graduates because sometimes it's nice to just bear in mind that just a few steps ahead out of your degree, people are doing exciting things. So some stories here of recent graduates in the last year or two. Zainab working in Deloitte as a financial analyst and as a money manager, which is really interesting, coaching people in how they manage their money. Claudia, working in New York as a product and brand marketing lead, working with a team, managing a team, even though just 2 or 3 years out of her degree, and really thriving in New York. And all of these students recently spoke to our first year students to tell them a little bit about their experiences. Dan Lawler, currently representing as a brand ambassador Jameson in the Kenya market in Africa. And Chris Doyle, an example of somebody who went on to specialize in data analysis and working in AIB, just to give you a flavor. Okay, so that's the story about maybe why you might choose to study here. But I'd like to move quickly to really talk a little bit more about our degrees. Just while I do that, I just remind you, of course, to please feel free to use the chat to let us know any questions that you might have that you might like to explore. And we're going to just start here now by talking a little bit about our specific degrees. Okay, so going to begin. And by the way, one of the things we'd really like to mention in terms of the Quinn School environment, the student environment that we've cultivated here, is it's very focused on spaces, spaces to have all kinds of different experiences, whether that might be very much to do with analytics, so we have a data analytics lab here, or whether it might be to do with collaborative learning in different shapes and forms. So forgive me just when I pull up our slide deck again. Just forgive me. Yeah. Okay, I think this might be a good time. I'm just having a slight delay here. Yeah, there we go. Apologies. So just want to begin with our focus on the BCom. So I think that many people will be aware that the BCom is really the original and core degree here in the UCD School of Business, Quinn. And some things to be aware of with the BCom. You can choose to do a BCom over 3 years, or as perhaps 80 to 90% of students choose now, to do it over 4 years with a full year's paid internship. That internship is an experience that's really professionally managed and where you apply, having really had a lot of support in understanding what kind of options might suit you first, in practicing mock interviews and so on, and where you apply competitively and compete for jobs with your peers. But we have more than 70 employers that we work with here in the school. Um, to tell you a little bit more about the BCom degree, the essence of the program is it's a globally recognized program designed for ambitious and achievement-orientated students who want to make a significant impact. It's broad, it's got a deep theoretical basis, but a lot of focus on practical skills. It's challenging and it's very focused on the modern business world. We regard it really as the gold standard of business education in Ireland, and it's the root program for 3 of our 4 programs. So just to give you a glimpse of some of the types of modules, every student in UCD takes 6 modules per term, by and large. And for example, you see here in stage 1 examples of the types of modules you do, which are really setting the foundations of business, focused on business and society, working on your maths and quantitative skills, looking at your learning skills, experiencing business law, looking at human behavior in the workplace, understanding management practice, beginning your journey with accounting, practicing managing a business as a team through management simulation, looking at microeconomics, looking at tech in business and data analysis. So it just gives you a feeling, and all of our students will be exposed to some of these core modules as you'll understand a bit more as we go through our descriptions here. So BCom International, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that now. So the difference, I suppose, the BCom International difference, it takes as its root the BCom program, but it combines very much. We work with our colleagues in the School of Languages, Linguistics and Culture, and also with our colleagues in the Confucius Institute to deliver a cultural and language program of considerable depth. The program is 4 years. The third year of the program is taken internationally. That's a really significant opportunity within the program, a very immersive experience. Um, all of our students within the Quinn School have the opportunity to take on things such as a mentoring program. Our national students also have the opportunity to do a summer internship for credit, but they don't have the year-long internship. That would be a significant difference on this program. We're going to get to talk a little in a few moments with Reese, one of our students, who will share a lot more about how we might understand the difference between the BCom and the BCom International. But in fact, I think it is just useful to really think about this idea that what the BCom International offers you is really um, a chance to really lean into your cultural knowledge and intelligence and to build by having had the experience yourself of working outside of your comfort zone in a different culture and learning within the language and the culture of a different culture, a different language. And it's very well described by one of our colleagues as that cultural click. So, a really special type of experience to consider. Um, and just to give you a flavour of some of the different places that are become international students have landed, there's a good example recently captured by one of our become international students. So let's turn now to the business and law degree. Business and law degree is a joint degree with our colleagues in the Sutherland School of Law, just next door, beautiful building. And really, our business and law students have the great privilege of two fantastic schools. It's a 4 year joint degree, a double major, we call it. It develops a deep understanding of both the business and the legal landscape globally, but particularly in the Irish environment as well. And it has all of the opportunities that you would associate with our Quinn degrees already, an optional and exchange term that takes place in spring of third year in the business and law degree, and the option to do a summer internship for credit, also the Quinn mentoring program. You get a flavour there of the points and so on. We look at the degrees in comparison to each other towards the end of the session. I'll just turn to take a look at the BSc Economics and Finance, which is a specialist degree. It's a little different to our other degrees. It does have some common hallmarks. So one common hallmark for every student in Quinn is the module Business and Society. And we do that because we really believe that all our students, we want them to have a in-depth understanding and feeling for how business is affected by society and vice versa. Um, so all our students take that module in first year. They also take in this program a module called Professional Business Competencies and Development, which is very much the case across our other three degrees as well. This idea of constantly looking at your skills, setting goals, and then reflecting on how you're stretching your skills as you go through your program. Economics and finance students also have the opportunity to do an exchange and a 1 year internship, and again, the mentoring program. It's a very distinctive degree and obviously is best suited to students who have a strong quantitative flair and perhaps a career interest in the areas of financial economics, banking, or finance. And we'll hear a little more shortly from Sharvi, who will tell us a little bit about her experience on the program. Okay, so with that in mind, I think it would be a good time to invite our student panelists to join us if you'd like to switch on your cameras, folks. And what I might do at this point is turn off the screen share so we can see you better and just have a bit of a chat. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, but in particular, we might also just start with the question of course, what program you're doing, but why? So why are you doing the program that you are doing? So we might start with Adiola with the BCom. Adiola, you're very welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Adiola and I'm in final year of the Bachelor of Commerce and particularly specializing in accounting. Um, one thing about me is that I did secondary school in Tralee in County Kerry. And in terms of why I chose commerce, I was actually one of a very small number of people in the course now that actually did know kind of the route that they wanted to go down. And for me, that was accounting. I'd gotten a lot of exposure through my parents being in the field. And then also for junior cert, I did business and then accounting and economics for senior cycle, which that just solidified for me that it was a strong point and something that I really, really enjoyed. And so I had from top to bottom on my CAO just accounting. And then I think it was December of sixth year that I had a maths competition over in UCD. And that was my first time visiting the campus, and I just loved it. So now my choices were very tight. I wanted UCD and I wanted accounting. So I then did a very deep dive on UCD's business courses and was able to discover that I could specialize in accounting through the commerce degree, as well as get all the full first set of exemptions for professional exams that you would do to be a certified accountant if you were to go down that route. And so it was a no-brainer for me, and I put UCD commerce right up the top of my list, and I have no regrets.
Delighted to hear that, Adiola. And as you said, you came with a very clear-sighted idea of what you wanted to do. And of course, as you look across your colleagues in the class, do you see that you're very typical or quite different from your colleagues? Do you see a range of different approaches?
I think um, there's a very, very wide range amongst all the over 200 people in the course. There's people that are more so interested in marketing. There's people more so interested in finance or human resources. But there's also people that are still generalizing in all the different subjects, as well as people that would prefer to go more so down the entrepreneurship route as well. So I think I was definitely a minority in terms of knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And so yeah, I think there's a wider range, yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah, you've really drawn that out for us. I hope that that's a feeling that everybody's left with, that you can truly specialize, or you can there's a range of potential specialties, or in fact you can really take a generalist approach as well. So that's great. Well, okay, as we continue, let's just hear from each of you first. So Reese, we might actually ask you now. You're doing a course, the Become International. Why?
Thank you, May, for the introduction. So, my name is Reese Kilbride. I come from Portmarnock in North County Dublin. I decided to do Commerce International because I was not as clear set as Adiola was. Quite in contrast, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I had an interest in language. I knew I had a particular interest in France and French culture, and I come from a business family background. So, Commerce International was kind of a no-brainer for me. So obviously, UCD Quinn School of Business is quite up there in the top 1%, triple accredited, and the best in Ireland. So that was a no-brainer for me to decide to come here. So as I said, I wasn't sure, like Adiola, I wasn't going directly down one route, accounting or finance. I'm kind of exploring, still in the process of exploring and understanding what I want to do. But that's the great thing about this degree. It gives you the option to try from a multitude of things, HRM, accounting, finance, and then you find your niche and then you can specialize in that. So that is the great thing about the degree for me, and that's what drew me to UCD.
Well, thanks very much, Reese. And while you're talking to us about it again, I think you've really given us that sense of possibility. But of course, Become International, you can choose one of five different languages. You chose French.
hmm
And what's interesting, I guess, is that that means so you would pursue French at the advanced level. Would you just briefly chat about some of the other language possibilities as well and your experience?
Course, of course. So when you start in Commerce International, you get the choice of two languages. So often people will choose the language that they studied at Leaving Cert level. So for me, that was French, and then I decided to do Spanish because it was the closest alternative, I guess. But I would recommend to students to really use that opportunity wisely. So you need to do the research into the language that you will possibly choose. So there's Chinese, there's Italian, there's Spanish, there's French. So I really would recommend looking into the abroad opportunities which you will get. I would look into the departments. I would look into how rigorous the language will be taught. And really, you don't need to stick exactly with what you did in the Leaving Cert. Just because you did Spanish in the Leaving Cert doesn't mean you have to do Spanish when you go into Commerce International. You can try Chinese, and then you can excel in Chinese, and then have a great experience in one of the universities in China. So I would also strongly encourage you to carefully understand what it means to study a language at a university level. So it's a third level. It's not like the Leaving Cert. You're not rote learning anything. It is a constant effort, and it is ongoing development. It's not that you can't cram in the last week for your French or your Chinese exams. It's an ongoing process. So it's not all about the glamour, which is associated with the year abroad. Obviously, that is a significant opportunity which the Commerce International degree offers you. However, it is a challenge, but it is highly rewarding.
That's fantastic. Very well said, Reese. Really appreciate that. That's superb.
No problem.
Okay, all right. Before we talk to Sharvi, I might just mention we don't have a business and law student on the call just now, but we would like to just let you know as an example. So we find that business and law students, it's really a dual degree. And we find that students sometimes specialize, like they would lean towards the idea of becoming a solicitor or a barrister. Sometimes they lean back towards the commerce story, and they might look towards any of the possibilities that Adiola has outlined. And then quite often we see people who like to do a hybrid, and that might be leaning towards something like corporate social responsibility, leaning towards business ethics or consumer regulation or interesting areas such as that. And in a couple of weeks' time, we have an event here at the school for our students, listening to some of our alumni talk about their career experiences reflecting all of those possibilities. So just to give you that feeling, we'll certainly answer any further questions in relating to any of these degrees in the Q&A. So don't forget to add your questions if you have them as we go. But could we turn now to Sharvi? And Sharvi, you're doing economics and finance, which is our more specialist degree. It's a little different from the other three degrees. But tell us a little bit about you and why you chose to do this degree.
Yeah. So my name is Charvi. Hi, everyone. So I went to secondary school in Dublin. I went to Loretta Beaufort. And when I was in secondary school, I knew I enjoyed maths for sure. But some of my other choice subjects were chemistry, physics, and accounting for the leaving cert. But I had also done business in the junior cert. So at that stage, I was like, okay, I am interested in business and accounting, but I'm also really enjoying maths, and I did applied maths as well. So, knowing that, my first step was probably to look in detail at all of the business courses that UCD offered and other colleges and things. But what really drew me to economics and finance is probably number one, the internship year, because that's a big um, it's a full year of working in a corporate environment. So the skills and confidence that you gain from that are really unmatched, honestly, and it gives you such a big advantage later on as well in terms of figuring out what you want to do or what you don't want to do. And then also I had some experiences with UCD before joining the college as well. Like for example, in TY, I came to UCD for an award for the junior cert business in the Quinn School. And I'd also done a week in the UCD for astrophysics. It was like a seminar or something for a week. It was so I had some experiences with UCD, and it was like it really, you know, made me feel this would be a good place to begin my third level journey. And then in terms of the content, I also kind of knew I wanted to work maybe in some sort of multinational company or a big company and something in the field of finance, but I don't have a background in finance like my family. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an accountant specifically or go into investment banking or like different types of finance. So this degree has really, really given me the opportunity to explore lots of different types of finance roles. And like you can go into accounting and specialize in that, or you can specialize in maths or finance or economics. So it was really interesting. Yeah.
Mm. Yes, and I think it's great as well to hear, that you still have, even though it's a more specialist degree, you retain a great amount of choice and you can exercise that in all sorts of ways and including the type of electives you might choose as well. Um, so we'll ask each of you maybe a little later to maybe talk about your a surprise or a best bit and any advice you have. But just now, I see there's a number of questions in the chat that really focus on what is a typical day? What are the kind of hours that you would expect to do? And I'd love to hear from each of you talking about that from the perspective of your different degrees. So Adiola, what would you how would you describe your week, if you like, or a typical day?
I would say I would typically have around 3 hours of class a day. I think that would be like the max if I was to have classes each day. And I think even in first year, there was a semester where I didn't have classes on Friday, for example. So it really depends on that specific semester. And another thing as well is that with commerce and a lot of the other business degrees as well is you get a lot of choice. So it might end up depending on what modules you've chosen, if there's more practical aspects to them. But ultimately, all the modules are worth similar credits. So if there is an in-person class, you probably are studying as well instead or doing practicals or tutorials, so smaller classes. So I think that's the layout of the course. And I think it's really important to like time manage as well. So for me, I use like a digital system called Notion that enables me to really just track my class times as well as my study times. So I would definitely advise that.
That's an interesting piece of advice. Good advice, Adiola. And so, as you said, so bearing in mind that everybody's doing pretty much 6 modules, that's the typical story.
Yep.
And typically, a module might have, say, a 2 hour lecture across a week, or maybe some tutorials or supports or other types of experience. Does that mean you have nothing to do the rest of the time, Adiola, or how does it shape out?
I wish it did.
Ah,
Um, but I think there's going to also be obviously the study aspect of things. Some modules might demand more of your time in that aspect, some might demand less time. But I think it's all about understanding how you're going to be assessed in that module and working towards that. And that will enable you to know how much you're going to have to do to study for the module. But I don't think it's something overbearing or something that's like a game changer in making your decision. I think it just takes being consistent from week one and keeping on top of things. Something I love to do is to study the stuff before the lecture actually happens. That way you can actually understand what's happening much easier as well. So yeah.
okay, thank you for that. And from the languages perspective, Reese, would you add anything in terms of hours, or how would you describe it?
Well, obviously, Commerce International has the commerce aspect and then the language aspect. So the majority of the commerce aspect is exactly similar to what Adiola would do, for example. And then with languages, they're often more personal. So there would be in smaller groups, and there'd be one-on-one teaching. So that would kind of differ from the commerce aspect. Um, and yeah, in general, with like designing your timetable, you get to pick your timetable. You do 60 credits over the 2 semesters. So you have to do that wisely. You can work it around your schedule, part-time work, stuff like that, commutes, things like that. So there's a lot of things to kind of take into account when it comes to designing your schedule. In general, like this semester, I'm doing about 14 hours. So I'm in Monday to Thursday. I have Friday off, which is quite nice. And yeah, so you design your timetable yourself. You do it to how it suits you. You pick exams. If you'd like to do subjects with final exams in the RDS, you do that. Or if you'd only like to do subjects where you have assignments and in throughout the year assessments, you could do that too. But it is always about finding a balance and making it work for you.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think you don't like you try to look for the subjects that you might suit if you like, but
Yeah.
I suppose there is a limit and there is a certain amount of core that does require. And we particularly find with languages the advice we get currently is it's all about putting in the time, it's
Oh
practice,
yeah. Oh
practice.
yeah. When it comes to developing a language, it is all about constant practice,
Yeah.
building on your learning. And then in the third year with the Erasmus, that's when you can bring, your theory to like a practical context, and you really will see everything that you've been studying for the 2 years leading up to your Erasmus. You'll see that come to fruition, come to life, which is amazing. And then you come back in final year, and the language is a lot easier. So it's great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Sharvi, was your week similar, or would you have differences from the economics and finance view?
I will say probably because it's a bit of a smaller course, there is slightly less choice in terms of designing your own timetable in that sense. So I would usually be in 5 days and I would have, there's 6 modules, so 2-hour lecture for each module every week. And then 3 or 4 modules will also have a tutorial, which is a small group, particularly for the maths and stats ones. And also in second year, there's some more kind of more coding focused ones for like Python and R, things like that. So there are smaller groups, and that would be a 1-hour tutorial every week. So probably around 16 hours or so. This semester I have Monday off, which is really nice to have. And then apart from that, I would say in terms of differences, um, not so different, but I've found there are quite a lot of group projects, which I know there's also in commerce and probably international commerce as well, which is good because that means, your final exam isn't going to be 100% just that 2 hours. So there's a good balance of group projects, some individual projects, and just some continuous assessment, like weekly quizzes and things. So
Mhm.
the workload is spread out quite well, let's say.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say for everybody's I suppose insight, it is the case that at university and particularly in the business school, we're looking for a lot of independent learning and initiative, collaborative learning. We're looking for you to experience a lot of different types of assessment that will stretch your skills in different ways. And so while it mightn't seem like a lot of hours, to thrive, you really do need to, I suppose, have enough freedom and determination to self-manage and to be present and engage in those ways. There might be an idea sometimes in asking the question, how many hours? Well, how well will I be able to balance part-time work? And we know increasingly that's an absolute necessity for many people. And in fact, it can really help you sometimes to have that experience. However, it's really important to understand that it is ultimately a full-time program and that you can only thrive if you can put in the time and be present for particularly the assessment and independent learning that's asked of you. So great. Okay. Valerie, did you want to jump in with any questions at this stage, or will we focus on continuing the
No,
discussion?
no, I can answer a few questions. I was just answering a few questions. So there was
Mm,
definitely a lot of questions there about the hours. And I think you made a good point that, the contact hours are definitely, I suppose, just the contact hours, and there's a lot more outside the classroom. There was a lot of questions before about modules. So I don't know, maybe we would just, if everybody maybe would like to name or talk about one module, because we did talk about electives and options and specializing your degree. But I suppose in reality, maybe what does that mean? And maybe did anybody take a module that maybe was a little bit unusual for them or outside what they would have expected to do and how you found it? And then there's actually a few questions about assessment as well. So I suppose how do you learn and how are you assessed? If you could wrap all that into one question, it just gives a sense of what it's like.
perfect.
Adiola, do
Okay.
you want to go first, maybe just as a
Yeah.
start?
So for me, I obviously came in really liking like accounting, finance related subjects. And I think one that really stood out to me was data analysis, which I did in second year. and it was all about using statistics for making evidence-based decision making. And we were basically taught how to work with large amounts of data, and especially including in Excel as well, and how, a small sample can actually tell us information about a larger population. So this was something that is obviously very useful in the business context, but then it's also useful in so many different areas as well. And I actually loved it so much that it encouraged me to do a structured elective, which is somewhat similar to a minor in statistics and data analytics. And yeah, so I've really, really enjoyed that. And I think even in the internships that I've done as well, it's come in handy because when I open Excel and I see lots of data, I don't really get scared anymore because I've learned those skills from that module. So that was one that I definitely didn't expect to enjoy as much. And then in terms of assessment as well, I think Quinn is really good for not just having like monolithic assessments. It's not just end of year paper exam, but you'll also see assignments, group work projects, and even simulations as well. So in second year, we had business management simulation module where we got to basically set up our own business from start to finish and compete with others in our class as well. So that was one of the fun methods of assessment that we had.
That's
Great.
great. Thank you so much, Adiola. And I know that several of you will have done data analysis, but Reese, would you tell us about a module that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I think it is necessary just because I'm representing Commerce International to talk about a French one. So, it's not all about grammar, it's also about culture. So, for this last semester there, I did a module called Literature of Quebec. So, Quebec is a region in France where they only speak French, and it is a francophone region. So, we essentially went in detail into a novel, a play, and poetry. So it was extremely, extremely interesting to learn about the cultural background, French colonization in Canada, and learning about how that has kind of transpired over the centuries. And then yeah, so that's an example of a cultural French module that I did. And then another thing I did out of the ordinary was an elective. So of course you have options to explore the amazing opportunities that there are in UCD with your elective. So there are credits which are made available to you to choose whatever you'd like. So you could do sports injuries, you could do food, diet, and health. I decided to do European foreign policy, which was really interesting. And then that kind of sparked an interest in European affairs, international affairs for me. And then I decided to pick one of the option modules, which is made available to Commerce and Commerce International students called European Industrial Relations. And then through that module, I got the experience to travel with the class to Brussels, where we went to the European Commission, we went to the European Parliament and the European Council, and I got to speak with Irish members of the European Parliament, Regina Doherty, and all in all, it was just an eye-opening experience. So there is the world is your oyster in UCD.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And it's a really good example of, you're not just learning through knowledge, you're learning through experiences and really transform, life changing. Really, those are going to be with you right through your life and career. I'm quite sure of it. Thank you so much, Reese, for painting that picture. And Sharvi, what about yourself?
Yeah. So I would say, in first year, you have a good mix. Like you have a couple of more basic sort of maths modules that will they'll pick up where you leave off in the leaving cert, especially for things like calculus and some linear algebra and things like that. But then you also do introductory into like economics and finance, as you'd expect, as it's in the name. But I didn't do economics for the leaving cert, so I was a little bit worried, like, would I be able to keep up? Would it make sense? But honestly, it was completely fine. They teach it really well from scratch, and you pick it up really quickly. And there's so many people who haven't done it, so you don't feel like I'm behind or anything like that. And so I suppose one of my favorite modules has been a module called game theory, which I took in second year. And this module, so even the names sounded interesting to me. And then when you went a bit deeper into it, it was a good mixture of a bit of maths, a bit of economics, but also real world applications, which is where it gets much more interesting. And so, for example, in game theory, you'd be thinking about how do firms make decisions, or why would they choose to keep their prices at a certain level, or what happens if they do this? So, but you're kind of analyzing it through maps, which is really interesting. And another one I wanted to mention was corporate finance because it's a big part, obviously, of the degree. And also in second year, we had a group project. So we had to pick a like big multinational company. So my group chose Boeing, and we have the Bloomberg terminals, which I think was mentioned earlier. In the Quinn School, which is really like we're really lucky to have them because they people use them in their actual workplaces as well. And so it's really good to build up that skill now. But essentially it has loads of data from all the publicly listed companies available. And so in the project, the things that we would learn in our lectures, we would have to go and analyze and apply by ourselves in the project. So, for example, I did the section on the qualitative and quantitative competitor analysis, but it was a lot of self-learning, but also really applying what you learn in class, which helped me also in my internship later on, which is really big. And then also I went to module to date, I think, has been one called International Money and Banking, which I just did last semester because it really talks about like the whole overview of how central banks work, how is it different to commercial banking, and like very practical things that are going on in the world right now. So they were really interesting for me. Oh, and in
No,
terms of
that's
assessments, again, I think I already talked about that a bit before. But yeah, like the group projects are honestly very helpful in terms of your learning because they're the ones that help you most when you go on to work as well in internships and working in a team setting. So, yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. And while we have you, Sharby, there's a quick question there. Had you considered other courses had you not got economics and finance? And is there anything? I mean, we that's really not for us to go into detail, but top of mind, does anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, really. There was one other course I had considered at the same kind of level, which was MSIS, Management Science and Information Systems in Trinity. So, because again, it had a lot of quantitative aspects, like similar to UCD, but I'm very, very glad that I was in economics and finance, especially for the internship year, and also like all of the opportunities that you get in the Queen School, which I had no idea, but things like um, different scholarships, different trips to employers. Like, for example, there's a London trip that happens as well, where you get to go to the big banks and consulting firms in London, about 20
It,
people or so. So
yes, it's
there's so
competitive
much.
by
Yeah.
people. Yeah. No, that's really helpful. I mean, our ambition is always that people would find the right course for them, but these are practical
Mm,
questions too. I think if
yeah.
you're looking for UCD, there would also be others in maths and stats that people might consider sometimes as well, or obviously
Yeah. There
economics.
was
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also actuarial finance in UCD as well, and we share a lot of modules with them in first year as
Yeah.
well. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, as we
Maybe
have,
it's just
go on,
sorry.
Valerie. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking we've talked a lot about the curriculum, and I know we're kind of nearly at time, but I
Yeah.
don't think we've asked Reese to talk about his year abroad. And Adiola
Yes.
and Charvies have fantastic internship experiences, so I think we couldn't possibly not talk about them because they are some of the real highlights of the program. So I don't know, maybe if each of you just wants to talk about your experiences. And I know for anybody watching, sorry, we said we'd be finished, but I think it's really important that we do bring these
Yeah.
up because they are huge kind of experiences within the degrees and probably some of the things that would set them apart from other degrees. So, Reese, maybe if we ask you first, because as part of the Commerce International, um, so all of the programs, I think maybe you mentioned has an opportunity to go abroad. So commerce, economics, and finance and business law, it's a semester. There was a question about that, but for Commerce International, then it's a mandatory 1 year. So you were away in
Mm.
France last year studying through French. So
Yes.
maybe how was that for you?
Well, yeah, as you said, yeah, the Erasmus is about 9 months, so it's 2 semesters. And the incredible thing about Commerce International is that you have a guaranteed spot on Erasmus. So it is obviously mandatory. It is how the course is laid out. If this seems too scary or too long, you possibly should consider a different degree because it really is a cultural immersion. I arrived in a place called Grenoble, which is in the Alps in France, in September 2024 with decent level of French. And then I arrived into my first class on Monday morning, surrounded by solely French speaking people, and then being taught business through French, doing group projects, presentations, quizzes, exams. I sat management accounting through French. So it was probably one of the hardest experience, most difficult experiences I've ever had. It was incredibly difficult the first semester, trying to understand what's going on in the lectures, trying to get involved with the school, with the university community, make friends. But by the end of it, I was working a job teaching English to French students. I was skiing on the weekends with the university. I had developed a friendship group that was solely French speaking. And I came back a completely different person. I could speak French very well. I was extremely confident, and I had like an in-depth understanding of French, the French language and culture, something that was never taught in class. It is really a very unique experience. It is one I would strongly recommend. Don't pass this opportunity. It's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you, Reese. And it's not an easy thing to do. I think you've got that
No.
across too. It can be really daunting, but
Mm,
it is so worth it. And then we hear that
yeah.
over and over from our graduates.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and let's
Amazing.
hear a bit about the internship story then. Diola, would you tell us? You had some quite exceptional stories to tell, I think.
Yeah, so I think coming into the course, I wasn't too focused on the internship year, but now in hindsight, now that I've done the internships, I think it was probably the best takeaway that I've gotten from the 4 years here. So I think in terms of the process, it was quite simple because the business school really helped us throughout each stage of the application process. For example, we had the Quinn mentorship program which pairs you up with a mentor who's already in a field of business or finance or marketing. And that really, really helped, especially when it came down to identifying where my strong points were in terms of where I would work well in. And with the advice of my mentor and so on and support, I ended up doing my placement here at PwC, a Big Four accounting firm, and I did it in audit, which essentially means that every month or so I was working on a different client and making sure that their financial statements were giving an accurate picture of the actual state of their company. So this involved lots of Excel, team calls, and even for some people visiting the client's offices as well. And then I enjoyed that internship so much that I actually ended up doing another internship straight after that, a summer internship over in London. And I did that at an investment bank called Goldman Sachs, where I worked in the controllers division, which is kind of a fancy term for accounting. And there, each day I was doing the profit and loss statements for the trading desk. And so, in my eyes, I think the internships were just a once in a lifetime chance to be able to get experience of your field before you dive into like a full-time role after graduating. And so for some people, it would make them, not want to continue in that area. And then for others, it would solidify the fact that they want to go into that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend.
Thank you for painting that picture, Adiola. Really, really helpful. And yes, we find the internship often really helps people in their final year because suddenly you have so much context when you're studying and so much experience to bring to bear as well. And you've gained in confidence and understood that actually what you've been learning has true relevance and application. So thank you for that. Sharvie, what about your journey on the internship?
Yeah, so, in addition to everything Adiela has spoken about, I also want to say that the preparation that you do before the internship, and the help that the school gives you in terms of completely refining your CV and your cover letter, but also doing mock interviews with you. Because for me, I was quite nervous going in, even to the mock interview when I knew there was nothing, like no stakes to it. But just practicing that in a real life setting. And then you basically apply to 5 places through the Quinn, and then you can apply to other external places outside as well if you'd like. But just doing more and more interviews, just builds up your confidence and it helps you, to make it not as scary. So the more you do them, the easier it gets. And so like if I think about pre-internship and post-internship, the amount of confidence and people skills that you learn, it can be severely underestimated. Like the amount of
Mm.
in like a workplace, the group skills that you need to work in a team. Obviously, you're going to develop all of your technical skills. Like I learned a lot. I went to Microsoft, by the way. I should have mentioned that. So I learned a lot of Excel, Power BI, Copilot, and all of that there. But people skills is definitely something that I hadn't really developed as much in university as I did during the internship. And it's made a really big difference into final year as well, both the technical plus people skills. And I've had a really wonderful experience there as
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Harvey. Okay, we have a small number of quick fire rapid questions that Valerie and I might address. But before we do, I just see there was one question asking if the campus, the business school was isolated or you got to mix. Any quick answers to that, folks? Do you get to mix with the rest of UCD much?
Yes.
Definitely you do. It's in the heart of the campus, not isolated.
Yeah,
Yes.
very good.
Exactly. And we also find a lot of students from other subject areas, including engineering, science, and so on, medicine, all come and like to hang out here. And many choose our electives too. So you often get to work side by side with people of other disciplines. Great.
also, a lot of classes have been in different buildings as well, all across campus. So it's definitely not isolated. You'll mix for sure.
Yeah. I think if you have the opportunity, do come and visit UCD to experience it. But certainly, the 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 environment here is all about community and about opportunity. And the most valuable, I suppose, idea is just making sure you get the chance to take on as many of those opportunities as you can. Okay, some quick fire. I'm going to say thank you so much to our student team. You've been fantastic. There are some additional questions, of course, in the Q&A. We may answer some of those offline afterwards. But a few quick fires. A question that often comes up, Valerie, is, of course, can you transfer between BCom and BCom International? Quick answer to that?
No.
Nope.
No. And it's a question we get asked all the time. And I think it's really important, I suppose, for anyone watching tonight. It really isn't an option to transfer between the programs. If anyone is thinking about their number one or their number two and thinking, oh, I'll go for commerce. And if I don't get commerce, maybe I'll do commerce international. Sure, maybe I can exchange, like it's not an option. So please, I suppose just park that as a hard no today. And base your choice on the degree that you want to study. And it's something that will come up again and again. So the answer, would I be
Yeah.
fairly accurate, Maeve?
Yes. And
If you don't have an interest in languages, I wouldn't recommend studying it at third level. You need to know that you're interested.
yeah.
Yeah. And my next question, I'd say, Maeve, what's your next question?
Yeah. Can you drop language?
Yeah. And again, no, I suppose, and we want to be kind of quite clear again on that this evening. If you are considering Commerce International in particular, we really, really urge you to have an interest in language, as Reese has said. It is the fundamental, I suppose, of what the degree is built around, and that interest and that passion in that language and that culture is what the Commerce International is. So if you don't have an interest in that, you're doing yourself a disservice as well. You do have to study the language. As Reese said, it is challenging to learn a language, particularly if it's not something you want to do. And you're going to do yourself a disservice. So we would say, please, don't be again kind of thinking commerce or commerce international. Do the work and make the choice that is right for you.
Absolutely. And it is so worth it if you
Yeah.
feel it is your program, but
Yeah.
they are not interchangeable. That's extremely important that you understand that.
And I suppose we, just to mention the points, like there is a points difference at the moment.
Mhm.
And I suppose like we do anticipate that some people will think, oh, there's 10 or 11 points difference, so I will put the two down. Like we would urge people not to go down that route, because it really isn't the best use of your choice, and it's not the best way maybe to think about your degrees as well. Um, that's kind of back to the bones of the points, but that's the reality of it. And we do see it then students join and maybe the language isn't for them and they realize maybe I shouldn't have done this. So we're urging, I suppose, now to consider it at the outset.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's also often a question about, can we transfer from other programs? We did year one somewhere else. Could we transfer in? And honestly, our answer to that is it is very, very rare. We would not, it's not the starting place. So there is a transfer route, but it is dependent on places, and we find that we are usually completely full to the rafters and don't have spots for that. So I just wouldn't choose that as your priority or way of thinking about it. And if I had a kind of closing message for anybody on this, I would say the most important thing really we've learned over time, and you can see it in our amazing students here on the call, is how you go to college. So where you go to college is of course important in what you study. Of course, you want to get to something that you feel you can thrive at, but how you do it, like the extent to which you're able to show up for yourself and for each other every day, that you're really kind of invested, that is the most important thing of all. So that is something to consider in terms of everything from commutes to comfort levels, and the type of program that you might choose. It's much more important that you can really, really, really dig in. And as much as we want everybody to come here, we want you to really consider that you should only come here if you can really lean into the opportunities and really understand that the program you've chosen is the right one for you. So, any other quick fires, Valerie, that you would like to mention before we wrap and let everybody get on with their evenings?
No, I think we've kept people long enough, but I suppose like similar to what you say, Maeve, like there is a lot of programs and we know people are making big choices and our job here is just to tell you who we are. And but also, just if you do want to come and study with us, you're making a big decision. So make sure you understand our degrees or where else you're looking. If you want to come and see us, come and visit. We just want to help you be informed so that you make the decision that's right for you. I think that's probably, the bones of it, isn't it? I have it up there, like do your
Yeah.
research. You know, if you're going to put a course as number one or number two in your CA, look, you should just absolutely make sure we say lifted the lid on it and look at the modules so you know what you're going to study. If you like what you're going to study, you're going to do really well at it, but make sure you understand that. Again, if you're going to pick a school or a university, make sure you visited it. If you're coming for 3 or 4 years, it's so important that you walk in the front door and you feel that this is the right place for me. And we'd hope if you come and visit us here at any stage, either formally or just come in for a coffee, we have a lovely coffee shop here, that straight away you'll get a feel for the building and the atmosphere here and you feel like this is somewhere that you could belong. But that's really important as well. So don't underestimate, I think, how important all of that is in the decision-making process. That'd be my, I suppose, piece of advice. You're signing up to something for a couple of years, so just make sure you know what you're signing up for.
Okay. And before we close, just a very last one-liner piece of advice from everybody, if you would like. Would you like to try that? Yeah, Reese, you're nodding there. Do you want to throw something in the pot? It might be something you've already emphasized, but feel free.
Um, I mean, I kind of would reiterate what Valerie said. It is 4 years
Mhm.
of your life. Don't stick it down because, you want to be, oh, I went to UCD, oh, I did this. It's not about that. It's about what you're going to be doing day to day. It's about how you're going to get to college. It's about the people you're going to be with, the environment you want to be in. So I'd really kind of reiterate what Valerie said. Just look into what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you for that, Reese. Adiola, would you, or Charvi, yeah, go on ahead.
Yeah, I would also just say like there's so much in college to do as well that, we could talk about it forever. But like for example, the societies and the opportunities you get from the societies are huge as well. And also, like when you're making your choice, I would really say just do, again, like Valerie said, do your research into the modules and what the course descriptions are, because it is really quite accurate. And if you enjoy what you're doing, you'll be happy. I think it's the main thing. And it's hard to know like what job you
Mm.
want to do, because there's so many jobs out there and jobs that you might not even know exist that I don't even know yet. So once you enjoy what you're doing, everything else becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. So taking that first step. Adiola.
I would say to do things that make you uncomfortable, because I feel like those are the things that really make you to grow. So like even before I was starting the course, I would have never thought to do like study abroad, but then that ended up being the best thing. And I just could see immediately that like I grew so much from those events. Or even like us doing this call now as well. Like I wouldn't have done something like this, but it's stuff like that that actually changes you, and that's always good. So yeah.
Love to hear that. And Valerie, you've shared your advice. Did you want to throw anything else in the pot? Are we good?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I suppose we just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us. We know it's a big decision. We are very proud of the school here. We work really hard to make it a great offering, and we hope that whoever's listening tonight is interested. And hopefully we'll see some people in September.
That's great. And
And
thank you
thank you,
very
of course, to Adiola, Charby, and Reese. Always our students are by far our best ambassadors,
much. Yeah, we're
without
very
doubt.
proud. Yeah, we are indeed. So to everybody in the call, thanks for the time, taking the time. And I see that there are some quite specific queries as well. We'll follow up those offline separately. But always know that you can email or reach out to us in other ways, as you've seen. So we wish you well in your decisions, and wish you a great rest of the evening. Thanks everybody for your time. Good night.
Thanks a
Thank you.
mil, Maeve.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.